that's I guess publicly that's a bad idea, bad image of us, but that's what we are. We're out there, we're that, cliched thin blue line keeping chaos from happening. So you need those warriors, So I've been in law enforcement 36 years. My last 6 years I've been in recruiting and background investigations. And, we used to say we used to hire the football team, now we're hiring the band. So, and that's the thing, the mindset of these kids coming in. So my training officers was Pappy's generation. Guys that came back from Vietnam, they were military, they went into police work. It was a natural transition for them. So they had that mindset. It was easy for them to put that mindset, give us that mindset. Then things changed and we started, not that it's a bad thing, but you gotta have a 4-year degree or we won't even look at you. You have to have a totally clean background. If you have any tickets, if you've ever been in trouble with the police as a juvenile or anything, you're not getting hired. So then we're hiring these milquetoast officers that the first time they ever wrestled or boxed or did anything was in that police academy, which has kind of been softened a little because you gotta make sure everyone passes. So instead of trying to get recruits that can do the obstacle course, let's make the obstacle course easier so we can get more people to pass it. And that's what's happened. Just recently, so we were able to do 3 ISR classes, 3 or 4 ISR classes. We'd like to do at least 1 or 2 a month. But now, okay, there's a new, some major came up with this new grant for a new task force. The road is depleted. Sorry guys, you can't have anyone for training. So that's what we're dealing with. And I think we're luckily we don't have that many officers hurt. But when someone does get hurt, all of a sudden they're into the training office. What are you guys doing about the DT program? Well, we've been trying to get it going,
right.
So that's what we're dealing with.
Is that what's happening across you guys as well, other states?
Yeah, I know, for me too, it's we're small offices all over the place, so we don't have the training in. We have instructors in the field, and then a lot of it requires travel to get together because they're out. It's like, hey, they got to spend money for hotels and travel to then train. They're like, well, just do 4 hours. It'll be good enough twice a year, that's fine. And so we can't get anything else, and then if you want to do stuff on the outside, they don't want to spend individual money to pay for you to go do anything on the outside. So if you want to train, it's on your own. Unless you find.
So that's the question. You guys can pass this around. So I'll start it with you. But what percentage, if you've got 350 officers, how many officers you're saying are doing like that? Like, because it's always pitched the same way: wake up, run, lift weights, do jujitsu, go to the range, shoot, and go to bed. Wake up every morning at 4, go to bed at 7. Then where the wife, where the kids, where the bills, where's the you're walking the dog. So how many guys do you think do at least 2 to 3 times a week of some kind of hand-to-hand control?
The 3 of us? Counting the 4 of us here?
Small amount.
Yeah, very small amount.
Okay, easily less than 1 to 2%.
So 15 to 20 people.
Maybe. That's even generous.
Is
Yeah.
it?
I can think of 5.
Is it a thing
4.
of motivation? Because in 1972 we had no money, and the quartermaster said each officer gets 18 bullets. That's it.
Right.
Nothing else. And we were small. We were 5-man teams. One north, one central, south, and northeast. Okay, so we had 4 teams of 5 men. No equipment, no nothing. We were motivated enough. The academy motivated us also, where every day we ran. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we boxed. Tuesday and Thursday we did judo. So some of this stuff continued, on our own. But we didn't have any weapons. We had 2 Thompson machine guns, so one went north, one went south. We had 4 rising machine guns in each station. Back then we had 5 stations, so we had 20 risings. Okay. The rest we put on ourselves, and everybody was motivated, and we only made $15 a month more than everybody else. That's the only incentive we got. but we took it upon ourselves. We were motivated. We bought AR-15s. We had 30-06 rifles also. Anybody that had an M1 carbine, we brought that in. If the armor said it was good, this was used. We used ourselves. We put it there. We bought our own ammunition until they started to see. The first year we had 8 call-outs north, 7 call-outs south. The next year was about 100 until we had 583, and then they said off the road. And then now you have 7 districts, and you have 7 8-man teams. Then they pulled us to one place where we, at that point, became one unit covering 3 shifts and the 7 days of 12 men.
When you talk about defensive tactics, your average cop on the road responding to a domestic is going to use more defensive tactics than a SWAT team would. You know, these guys hit a house, they're hitting it with a team. Andrew and I were talking about that. He says, we go to make an arrest, it's me and my 15 other buddies going to make the arrest.
Right.
It's not that single officer responding to a call where Scott's from, where he's got to maybe hang on for 30 or 40 minutes waiting for a backup. So, and it's almost ironic that these guys who train the most for SWAT, now our guys are still out there handling calls and all that, so that's great. But your average patrol officer is the one who needs this the most. They're the ones that are most where something goes from, it's just a stupid disturbance to something kicking off and they got to do it.
We had that problem too.
Yeah.
On Sundays, we had 2 officers north of Flagler, 2 officers south of Flagler. Now that goes all the way to the Keys.
Yeah.
And then two on the beach. So we knew we couldn't get help. So what
Especially
we
the
did-
horses. It took a while to get.
But we constantly worked with Hialeah, City of Miami,
Yeah, work
Opelika.
We work together, that's the other thing that's changed.
And the same thing, when we started to form the SWAT teams, what we did, we went to Ward Stanley and said, hey Ward, we got 4 open slots, send your guys here. And then he'd call me, he'd say, Pappy, I got 4 slots here, can you send 4 guys there? The City of Miami did the same thing.
For training.
And we were constantly, and then when we needed them, we call, hey, you know what? We got something on the other side of the county line, and then you guys would assist us, BSO would assist us with their SWAT team, because we worked with them.
There's a very baseline tactic from any tactical unit, whether it's military or law enforcement, which is your baseline basic stuff as far as how you enter the room. Even that sometimes gets kind of whatever. But there's a baseline way to do that. Everything else on how to deal with the situation, how to solve certain problems, whatever. This team does it different this way, this team does it different that way. Then you go outside of the region and go to the West Coast. They're doing things a little bit different. Then you go over to, we've worked with some of the Royal Canadian guys. They do something completely different, and it's all influenced by different things. So even in the tactical world, for lack of a better term, nothing's fully uniform. Now, what you'll find is, like South Florida, let's just say, most of the teams will have a pretty similar principle tactic for certain things. But I just came from North Carolina doing a CQB course and talking to all these guys from Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, a couple other places. It's like, wait a minute, you guys do that? You guys answer that problem with this resolution? It's like, yeah, what do you guys do? And they do something completely different. Now, good, bad, or indifferent, some of the stuff they talked about, we're kind of like, huh, okay, I actually like that. That makes more sense, or it's safer. But it's not always the same.
It was just blossoming.
Yes.
What we had was, we spent a week with Delta Force. I was one of the few people that knew their faces at that time. All right? So our tactics then became similar to theirs. Then the Navy SEALs called us and we went and trained the Navy SEALs, which was now very similar to what Delta Force was doing, they got from us. The city of Miami then took it, we were always working with Ward, so your people could just work inside with us. We were very similar with our tactics, but we were flexible enough that where if you came up and you showed me something, I liked it, I think that was better and was safer for my people, we started working that. We were very open-minded because we were the mushrooms just growing and we wanted to learn everything.
Yeah, so what's great about the era that he was in is this was brand new, 1970 or late 60s when it started, LA and LASD, and then Miami started and Miami-Dade. These guys all communicated with each other because they were like, hey man, what they all learned and grew together. And so for a period of time, it became uniform across the land. And then eventually, you could say politics, egos, or all kinds of things got involved. Oh, hey, I could do this better. And the same thing for the military. The military started kind of changing things here. Like something as simple as why Navy SEALs go high port and the other guys go low port. But there were specific reasons why those guys did that. But then now it became a thing of like, well, we're not doing that because those guys do that. And then now you started to have in that 90s, mid-90s to late 90s to 2000s, where now nobody's no longer collaborating together, nobody's talking together, nobody's training together. We all live in our echo chamber. We were guilty of that. Our team was very guilty of that. In the early stages with Ward and all those guys, they were all unified. Then it got to a point where certain personalities and certain political figures kind of changed things, and that changed. Now we're kind of back to, like you said, where we have set TTPs and set tactics and procedures how we do them, but we're now open-minded to going over to these guys to kind of see, hey, if this works better, why not? There's no ego involved in that anymore, so we're not staying in our little chamber anymore.
And I would say, again, you got the next generation, but defensive tactics, I've seen it go both ways. I just said it's a mess right now, but the good thing about it is there is conversations like we're having right now that they're trying to get something uniform.
Yeah.
Which is in the defensive tactics world. They're trying to say, okay, we've gone enough. Like we understand that this particular approach to cage fighting might not be perfect for us, and we understand, so let's go bring it back to law enforcement, which is our rules.
So I think the thing that people don't often think about or realize is that, so techniques and tactics are almost irrelevant. I mean, we've come so far with combat sports, we know what works, we know what doesn't work. The UFC's been around for 30 years now. You know, people are aware of what works and what doesn't work. You know, but if you look at the sports themselves, if you look at jiu-jitsu, if you look at judo, if you look at sambo, if you look at wrestling, if you look at Greco-Roman, we all know that those things function. We all know that they all work. Yet each one does something extremely different than the other ones. The only difference between those things is the rule set of the sport. And people love to say that, oh look, on the streets there's no rules, man, you know, anything goes, but that's just not the case. You have the laws of your state, you have the SOPs of your department, you have the Constitution of the United States, you have Graham versus Connor, you have rules that you need to follow. And so when you go outside and you start just kind of doing whatever, well now you end up with a hodgepodge that may not necessarily fit into the rule set of what you have to do on your job and what you have to accomplish. You know, and so that's kind of the problem when you go outside and you let people just kind of pick and choose what they want, it doesn't necessarily fit within the rules that you have and that govern you. You know, the SOPs in my department may not be the same as the SOPs of your department. You know, the laws of my state are not necessarily the same as the laws of your state. Graham versus Connor will judge us all because we're all law enforcement. But again, if you're not doing something that's going to be specific to the rules that you have to follow, you know, then it's going to be a lot more difficult to come up with something that's going to be legally defensible. And that's kind of the most important thing for us. If we're going to use force, then it has to be legally defensible. And the best way to do that is to have something that takes into account the rules that we have to follow and builds that sport, if you will, around the rules that we have to follow. And that's when we can come up with the things that will be most effective for us. You know, like you were saying, look, rear naked chokes are great. We all know that they work. But you know what? Some states have completely outlawed them. You know, for my jurisdiction, that's lethal force. You can't use it unless it's lethal force. You know, and so there's lots of limitations that can be put on people that, look, I train rear naked chokes every day because I'm a second degree jiu-jitsu black belt. But you know what, when I go to work, flushed. You know, it's a tool that I don't get to use, that I don't get to implement. And if I'm not aware of the tools that I get to implement, the tools that are going to be most effective to my job's apprehension. You know, in jiu-jitsu, my job is break somebody's limb or choke them unconscious. You know, get them to tap, get them to give up. You know, in MMA, it's knock them unconscious. It's get the ref to pull me off that person. Well, if that's the tactic that I use in my profession, well, I'm going to jail. You know, that's not my job there. That's not my goal. My goal is to apprehend, and in a way that's going to keep me safe, that person safe, and the public safe, if at all possible.
If at all possible.
You know, if at all possible, that's the ideal. That's what we're striving toward. You know, but if we don't have a system that's going to take those things into account, well, then we end up with this hodgepodge that puts people, you know, different people in danger without people even realizing, just because they don't have the tactics that are appropriate to the situation. So
If you're not doing something that's not weapon-based entirely, so every technique that you teach for defensive tactics is, can they still get to my weapon, or can I get to my weapon? Can I detach and use it, or can they detach with my weapon away from me? And is it team-oriented, where am I too tangled up and no one can help me? Because if you're learning any particular martial art that doesn't have a weapon-based orientation or a team orientation, then you're doing nothing really for law enforcement. Yes, we all applaud them because they're increasing their chances of surviving, but they're also compromising certain things publicly for the rest of the people. Exactly. So if you're a DT guy and you're listening to this, it's like, what are you doing to unify your people around something that works?
I think the biggest thing that you think about is disciples, right?
Yeah.
From Pappy's generation, where'd they all come from?
Yeah.
War,
Yeah.
right? War
Same
dictated
with
the
the 90s,
tactics.
you guys.
90s, 2000s, mid-2000s. Now the wars are dying off. The people that are coming into law enforcement aren't veterans anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and the old school guys, they're the veterans that came back from Iraq, from Afghanistan, and had multiple deployments. And so, just like his generation was looking at the new generation come up and said,
Yeah.
what are you giving me? What
Yeah.
is this that you're giving me to work with?
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's the future.
No, I
There's
get it,
nothing we can
and I
change
think
it.
it's up to us. I think it's up to the generation
Right,
that
and so
is
that's-
40 years
yeah.
old and up.
And so that's what we're trying to do, like with our department. So we have mandatory DT. When you first get on the job, you're going to go through a 24-hour ISR course. We're going to teach that. We're going to teach the ground. But the other thing we're doing is making it available for those guys that want to come in on their off time. So I'm going to be there at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. You know, there's open mat on a Thursday night. We're going to pull the class. What are you guys seeing? What do you guys want to work on? And then we'll take it back to this. It's handcuffing. It's this. It's hand fighting. That drill that I told you, where we're working on 50-50 brace, hand fighting, and getting to a handcuffing position. That's a great hour. You know, just break it down to those 3 sections and take it all the way to the ground. We could do that in uniform, sterilize everybody, and make it happen. But it's making it available because, you know, getting on the SWAT team, did the department give you enough time to train to shoot the level you needed to shoot to be where you needed to be to get on the team? You did it yourself, right? You went to the range on your own. I'm going to practice until shooting expert's my bad day, right? I'm not going to practice until I finally got expert, and then I'm going to go try out for the team, right? So I practiced until that PT was a walk in the park because I worked my butt off to get there. And so there's always going to be those outliers that do that on their own, but are we making it available to those guys?
That's it, right there.
Am I coming in on my off time or like, hey, I'm going to change my schedule in the training department. I'm going to come in at noon today because I'm going to teach a class tonight for some of the guys getting off shift at the jail or some of the guys that are coming off shift. And it may be 2 or 3 people. You may be giving up a couple of hours to 2 or 3 people, but what does that pay off in the end? Because they go back to their shift and they get into a scrape and they pull it off. I mean, it might not be perfectly, but they pull it off, they stay safe, and they're like, man, that saved my ass. And then their buddy comes in, and now you've got 3 or 4 guys. And so what are we doing as trainers to make that available? Even though maybe we don't agree with the principles that, or the work ethic, or the attitude, or man, you've never gotten off the couch, you've never been in a fight. Okay, they're there to train, right? They're going to be the future. They're going to be the officers. And so when things do unify, those are the guys that are going to be around. We're going to be retiring and griping about the new wave of police officers.
I think it's more so, it's worse now than it was generations before. But there's always been this thing that, hey, the police department should provide everything I need to be able to do this job.
Right.
And that's a crappy way of thinking about that. The police departments essentially aren't money-making organizations. We're not the NFL. The NFL will provide you everything you need to be the top player in the league possible. Trainers, doctors, anything you need, they will provide that. They also are a billion-dollar industry. Police departments, whether it's cities, counties, or states, we're not in a money-making business. So to look at it like, oh, then you should give me everything I need as far as gear, equipment, training, and everything else, good luck with that ideology. Good luck with that mindset. But inherently, what you've always found is no matter what agency, whether it's from local all the way to federal, you're gonna always have a small percentage of people that look at it as, well, you know what? I've come into this to do this job this way and to do it for the honorable reasons and the right reasons, and the agency's not going to give me what I need, so I need to go out there and seek it on my own. And I get a lot of younger kids that come through and they'll ask, hey, what should I do? Is it Muay Thai, BJJ, this, that, and whatever? And I don't like telling them, I'll tell them, listen, if you do BJJ, at least you have something there. There's all of it applied, just like the Delta and Navy SEAL analogy we use. SWAT teams go and pay this guy who's a Delta operator. I'm going to teach you something that I might get maybe 5% of it that I can use. The rest of it I can't use because I'm operating in a different world. Now I'm going to go over here to this Navy SEAL. I can only maybe use 10% of what you taught me because the rest of it's not applicable to me. So I kind of look at it in that kind of way. Yeah, BJJ is going to give you a lot of things. And I love it because I've been doing it for years and I always recommend it to cops. But you can only extrapolate maybe a certain percentage of that that's applicable to this. Muay Thai is great. I've been doing that for years. I love it. I love getting kicked in the freaking shins and it feels great. No, it doesn't. But I can only use a certain percentage of that. And then any other martial arts, wrestling. I've wrestled in high school. I wrestled when I was an adult. I don't know why. I hate it. But I can only use a certain percentage of that. So then now finding a system that can say, hey, I'm going to pull that 5% from BJJ that's applicable. I'm going to pull this 5% in the clinch work that works from Muay Thai or whatever. And I'm going to pull this 10% from wrestling and kind of make it and package it in a way where it's all applicable. I think that's the way of the future. That's what needs to happen. Versus, I'm just going to teach you jiu-jitsu. And yeah, you're a cop that train, and eventually you'll use maybe 5 or 6% of this.
Or painted by numbers, you're just going to...
Yeah. So a system like this, and there's a couple other systems that are out there that is like looking at it and saying, hey, all of BJJ doesn't apply, but this aspect does. All of MMA doesn't apply, but this aspect does. And this is why, and you can articulate why, and you can show why, and you can put those people in those pressure situations and say, hey, this takes into account your weapon system. This takes into account if that guy has a weapon. This takes into account all those things. That's why eventually I think if there's a hard enough push, systems like this will be the system to where now it's like, hey, this is the way to go for the guys in the future to be able to push that on. Like you said something earlier, even the academy is starting to look. I just did FDLE's instructor course, not like maybe last year sometime, and they're even going back. Like the instructor told us, hey guys, bear with us because we're constantly changing this because there's things that we have in there that we're adding, that we're taking away, that's not whatever. And when you look at it, a lot of it's jiu-jitsu based, judo based, MMA based, all this other stuff. But then they're testing it. No, that doesn't work. Scratch that. And then they go back up to Tallahassee, tell them, hey, so that's starting to happen in certain regions.
It's like what happened when the UFC first started. It was style against style.
Yeah.
Oh, can a jiu-jitsu
now
guy
it's
beat
synthesized.
Now MMA is almost its own style.
Yeah.
It's its own thing. And it's the same thing here. And I always said that, I taught martial arts for a lot of years. And what martial artists try to do, and martial artists who are cops, they try to make that system, their art, fit police work. So then you're like, I can't do this, but I can do this or I can do that. Where with the ISR, what I liked about it, what drew me to it, is this is a system that was designed for what we do, for apprehension, takes into account liability, it takes into account, is this legally defensible? Is it, morally, correct? Will it limit the injuries to you as well as the suspect? Because I tell the kids that too. You're taking a guy, as soon as you put your hands on this guy, you're responsible for him. So if you take him down and he was resisting because he was drunk and he cracks his head open on a curb, you're responsible for that. So now you have to have a system where when you are putting your hands on someone and you are taking him into custody, you can do it safely, where he's not going to die or be seriously injured, and you're not going to get sued or arrested.
Yeah.
See, that's the reality of the whole thing. We all know, we've been on the job, either police or military or both, and that is the best learning tool is on-the-job training. But in the profession that we chose, If you make that mistake, say I made that mistake, I'm dead. You 11 learn from that, but I'm dead. Realistic training, like we're doing here, is we find the mistakes in it, we fix it, people stay alive, okay? We continue to train it, people start to learn it, they stay alive. Because like you said, at some point or other, you're gonna have to put your hands on somebody. You put your hands on somebody, now you're in range of the weapon that you brought into the gunfight. So this is what is needed. This is what is needed.
Because I don't know if I agree with you that the department shouldn't be able to provide everything for its employees.
No,
You know?
no.
Well, but
The department should, but the reality is they don't.
They don't, but I think that there's an argument to be made for a push against that, right? So imagine this, right? So for us, we have a shift, right? Each shift has maybe a dozen people on it, right? And each of those shifts, they work 12 hours, so 4 days a week, right? I could take 3 of those people per shift, let them cut loose an hour early or start an hour late, right? For our day shift, nothing happens at 6 in the morning. They get to come in at 7. For our night shift, nothing happens at 5 in the morning. They get to get off at 5 in the morning, right? Now that's an hour of training a week that they get.
That's what we did for years.
Yeah.
That's what we did. We were tired, we got off at 6 a.m., from 6 to 7, we trained, then we went home.
I think that starts to happen once administration realizes that not having a system is a liability. Not liability because the officers are going to die. It's a liability for the police department and the city when they get sued civilly. They got to pay all these lawsuits, right? It's not happening as much now because it's happening. We're not hearing about it, right? We're hearing about the bad cops. When these cops are getting arrested and charged, they're not getting convicted. They're winning. Their grand jury's going no, or they're going to trial and winning trials. So there's full through it. Now those cops are going to sue civilly. It's going to be an 8, 9 year, 10 lawsuit for them. They're not going to pay that cop that can't be a cop anymore out, right? They're going to fight it because they're asking for millions. They're asking for the 10 grand that Susie asked that you called her a bad name, right? So once it becomes these kind of start getting settling and there's money and it becomes a liability to not have properly trained people, then when they recognize that, and it's happening right now in some places, right? Like, it's happening. Then they're gonna be like, we need something. And we hope we have people like us that are coming to like here at ISR and using new systems so we can say, hey, we have an answer for you. We don't need to go and find it. We have it. The people here are training. And so
So I wanted to ask you this. So you mentioned earlier there are jiu-jitsu gyms that are offering.
Starting to, yeah, it's cool to watch. Yeah.
Well, so where I go, Alliance, which is Cold Springs, he's for the longest time has offered Tuesdays and Thursdays a law enforcement specific program. But here comes the problem, right? It was a struggle. Like this guy's wasting his time coming in, and he had some other cops coming in at certain levels to kind of try to help guys come along.
Yeah.
At max, maybe 2 dudes.
Right.
On some days, and I get it, the problem is everybody's shift and schedules and units. We understand that, right? But then there are days where I know for a fact these 5 dudes, yeah, you could come in, but it just becomes I was tired, I was this, I was whatever. You don't have the drive or the motivation to do it. But it's always been offered. Now what's changed is the city that it's in, they went to their administrators, they laid it out on the table and said, hey man, the liability's put on you now because now there is something out there to give these cops better control, better whatever, without doing this and doing all this other stuff. Yeah. And it worked, at least for the time being, right? Yeah. So their chief was like, all right, where they started it was, you come out of the academy for that whole entire period of time before you get out on your own, that probationary period, you will be doing this twice a week, every week.
Yes.
The problem was, it wasn't mandatory.
right.
So now the question is like, what's everybody's take on making something mandatory?
That's the
versus
conversation. Because
Even to your point of like, how do you make it mandatory? I think working with your administrators, we were talking earlier, like you get a bad use of force, be up there and own it. No, that's not what we taught. Let me have that guy for a little bit. Let me have that guy for about 4 or 5 hours, and then work it. Correct that mistake. Watch the video. Own that mistake. Yeah, that was bad. Let them watch it. What happened here? What could you have done better? Now put them in a DT class or get a volunteer to come work with them and work them out of that exact situation using these principles.
Yeah, we've missed a lot of opportunities to do that. We've had not even bad use of forces. We've had officers attacked
Yeah.
that went black, conditioned black, didn't know what to do. And the newer generation of guys, Kevin and all those guys, I think it started with Chuck, that got up to trainings, wanted to say, hey, stop, time out. Let's look at that video, let's bring that officer in, and let's be like, hey, listen, we can give you a couple key things that will probably help you, or at least give you something in the toolbox to draw from, or your filing cabinet to be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
We've had 4 or 5 of those incidents that happen, and we've lost those opportunities because we were told.
But I think also too, command staff
That
is
should be able to own it.
right. But it's fine. But we have an officer that had a bad use of force or got attacked and just totally freaked. They're more concerned that we're going to make that officer feel bad.
That's
like
why,
they
yeah.
did something wrong.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You did do something
Yeah.
wrong,
Yeah.
and you're lucky you're alive.
Yeah.
And let me show you some things that maybe it won't happen next time. But God forbid you tell an officer that they did something wrong, and because they want to sit there and say, "Oh, that would happen to anyone. That could have happened to you." No, it wouldn't have happened to me.
So that's
But
why
they
I
never
think,
hear that.
that's why I think mandatory exposure, right? Just expose everybody to this program and what the trainers can actually do to an untrained person. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Right? So they're literally walking around with blinders on, thinking, all right, if somebody comes at me, I'm just going to shoot him or I'm just going to punch him. That's going to be the end of it. Well, a problem is your motivator, right?
Right.
So you have to be presented with that problem in order to be motivated to find a solution. And that goes for the individual officer being presented with, oh, I can't take care of myself by myself. I need to do something about that, which motivates them to find a solution in this. Or the department and figureheads finding out, hey, they don't have enough training. We need to give them more because now we have a liability on our hands. So now we're motivated to find a solution.
Yeah. Amongst the 3 of us, we had to have a conversation, 4 of us, like, do we want to make this mandatory, knowing the pushback that comes with, you're all coming into DT. My spine, I don't have a spine, I can't, my knees. Like immediately it's like, we're not going to that. If I have to do it, I don't want to go to it. Okay, well maybe we'll start in the beginning, trying to, we'll always be there and we have the training, like accessible on that level, but it's accessible in terms of like, you don't have to be tall or strong or fast or a wrestler or a jiu-jitsu guy, right? The best part of this system is you don't have to do anything but come to the class, right? The entry floor of the system is extraordinarily low. Does it help if you have a black belt? Of course. But to do especially like vertical core, which we're showing, like to do the techniques, I mean, anyone and everyone. You're not going to get injured. There's no one who can't do it, right? Go tell everybody that, right? The guys who want to come now, go tell everybody because yes, FDLE is going to mandate in-service defensive tactics, some portion for us. So now we're not going to get this crazy pushback of like everybody's hurt, no one has a shoulder, everyone's sick, like and so on and so forth.
So find those administrators that are allies, bring them to the class, let them be your ambassadors, right? Just find that ambassador that has an interest in martial arts of some type of combat, or maybe had a little bit of road experience, and bring them in and do a demo, show them, let them watch the class with the guys that are doing it, that enjoy doing it, right? Because that's how we keep selling it. That's how we keep propagating the system. It can be this entire resistance that at some point the purse strings are going to die up. They're going to tell you to quit. Because if you're always doing this, even though you're right, you're never going to win that battle. It doesn't matter how good it is. It doesn't matter how good we are, how well the system works. It's not going to work. You have to find the allies amongst the officers and amongst the admin, because if you don't get that buy-in, great, we have a great system that a few people are using on their own, but it's never going to get what we need it to do, and that's to save other officers.
Yeah, I went to a course, used the Margaret Thatcher theory, I'm just calling that. But the instructor basically, how they were able to get things done for their agency is, the guy saw a story on BBC or something, and the British SAS, when in their first inception, were very, these guys are specialized training and whatever, but they didn't really fully have the backing of the Prime Minister and funding and whatever. I think it was Margaret Thatcher at the time. They brought her into a room with British SAS guys getting ready to go through and do tactics with live rounds. Now, all of her administration was like, Mom, I think this is a bad idea, whatever. And she's like, no. Being the hardcore woman that she was, she's like, no, I want to sit in there. And these guys went in there and took our targets, went in there, did a hostage rescue. Thoroughly impressed with them, had full buy-in. Their budget completely changed.
Right, yeah.
So, I've heard this from other people around the country, other teams. That's kind of what started that the Marietta thing that happened in Georgia. That guy went in, and he's a jiu-jitsu guy. He went in and basically came up with all this stuff, went to his administrator, and then had them come out and show them. And they were like, all right, so let's do this. We've gotten some success with that with certain things. That's how we do our own in-house building clearance tactics. We do now do this, and that's how we were able to open that door. The chief came out one day, sat on the catwalk and watched a couple, not SWAT team, basic patrol officers do a basic building clearing. And some of the mistakes they made, when he was done, he got off the catwalk, his eyes were wide open, he goes, yeah, we need more of this, like right now. So that opened the door for us to do the building clearance tactics. Oh, chief, we want to do a counter ambush vehicle or HRVS. Go ahead and do it. Hey, chief, while we're at it, we kind of want to do this other program where we're teaching guys if they get into a tussle, whatever. Sure, go ahead and do that. So now we are pretty fortunate. We do have the backing. The problem is we now have to try to get the buy-in from the individual officers. Because doing building clearance tactics sounds cool to a patrol officer because he's like, oh, I'm going to go learn SWAT stuff. And the very first thing we tell him is like, none of these tactics are SWAT stuff. Oh, I want to do vehicle HRS stuff. None of these tactics, this is high-risk vehicle stuff you guys do all the time. None of this is SWAT stuff. Right. What do you mean, you guys don't do this? No, because we don't do this function. Our function is completely different. And they thought that was cool, so now we're like, hey, we're doing this other program where we're teaching guys how to do it. You get a handful of those guys. The buy-in is now going to come from those guys, which we've had a pretty decent group of guys come through. Hey, go tell your friends. And now they're going to go tell people and other people, but it's still like a teeth pulling because when the word DT is attached to it, like Mike said, oh yeah, my neck, back in 1973 I hurt my neck and I think it's back, and it's like, a whole entire thing. But that buy-in from the administration, I think we have that. We just now need to get the buy-in from the bottom up. Now
we did have good luck making it mandatory because they came in just like you said. I'm hurt here, but then we were able to show that we can work this system with an injured officer.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to put hands on anyway. If they're in a function where they have to do their
that
job,
injured, maybe
guess
should be
what?
on the road.
Yeah, you shouldn't be that knee, that back, that neck.
We put them on the desk.
Yeah.
If they did not show up for mandatory training, they were on the desk.
And so what we did was we showed like that extended exposition. We showed those things and building that get up so you can do this. You're just going to have to take your time, but you still have to be able to function. You still have, if you're out there doing the job, you still have to be able to make that arrest. So being able to show that it can be low impact, that I don't have to hurt myself, that I can keep, it's all about keeping my posture, right? We talked about the posture. So I'm not throwing my back out, and it gives you the best opportunity. At the end of those classes, the buy-in that we got by being able to work with that guy that had the bad knee or the back and be able to pull him aside and be like, hey, I want you to do it this way, all right? And pointing out those injuries at the beginning of class. You have a bad back, you have a bad shoulder, make sure you tell your partner, hey, don't break your toys, don't do this. And working with them at the end of the class, man, I really love this thing.
There's brilliance in that. That's, and I think it applies to more than just law enforcement. But like when we came up, the game was you're gonna get in the ring and you're gonna get the crap beat out of you, and you're gonna get the crap beat out of you until you stop getting the crap beat out of you. But the number of people that didn't survive that, was enormous. And the thing is that if we assume that of our officers, if we assume that sort of mentality, well, then we can get the people that are going to fake the injuries and not come to training.
Yes.
But when we do add that to the teaching, when we approach it from another method, so like we know from training civilians, if I run a gym, if I scare everybody out because
Yes.
they don't like, then I can't make a living.
If you're weeding out the weak, that's 90%, 95% is weak.
Right.
You just weeded out your entire population.
Yeah,
You have to
so-
accept those 5%ers or 3%ers.
Yeah, so I have to design my class in a way that they're going to want to keep coming despite the fact they haven't built that
That's what we always
strength
go
of
back
mind
to.
yet.
We need to build them, not the other way. It's not the
Yeah.
other way around. Not weed them out. We need to build them.
Right,
So that's it.
and because we don't have that option, is look, these are the people that are given to us.
Yeah,
We don't
it's
get the
harder.
option to weed
Yeah.
them out. So you know what? When we add all of that to our instruction, then we make them enjoy training, make them want to train, make them want to come back. So flipping the script, as much as we want to be like, oh my dude, you screwed up. Like, come on, man. Like it's obvious,
But you do that among your peers. You don't do that with your students.
Yeah, right.
Because 9 times out of 10, they survive something, and then they thank you. Like, man, I wish I had this when I was a young officer. I wish I had this when I was early on. Like, we had this training. Like, well, you have it now. You add that to the wisdom, everything you already have in your toolbox, and that's just one more thing.
The best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The second best time is
Right,
today.
right.